Well, good morning, folks. The puppies are. He's in his kennel. I just put him back in his kennel. He's been running around this morning, and they've been play fighting, and you can see there's toys all over the floor. Uh, you also see that I got a big pile of stuff right here. Okay, all of this came out of my cabin. I've already put some of it away. So I've got to go through this today and get it put away. I mean, this stuff is full, right? Uh, so let's talk about, let's have a serious talk about what I've been doing the last 2 days. For those who don't know, uh, I left Prepper Nurse One's group on Friday and Saturday, yesterday. Uh, Now, this decision to leave his group was based on several issues. The biggest one was the distance that I had to travel to get there. Uh, just let's just talk numbers here. To get to Ed's group, I would have to take Friday off. I would have to leave my house around 5 o'clock, and I wouldn't be up there until 1 or 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And I would not stop except to fuel and use the bathroom. So you're talking 8.5 to 9.5 hour ride one way. And then when I got there, I was so tired from driving that Friday I pretty much didn't get much done on my place. And then Saturday we had all the group projects going on, right? Now, for a couple months there, we didn't really have much going on with the group because there wasn't a lot of people there, and I was able to work on my cabin, right? But I'm just going to talk some numbers here. So if I take a day off, that's $250 out of my pocket, right off the top of the top, right up, just right off the top, right? Then you're talking 125 for the spot. Then you're talking anywhere from $100 to $200 just in fuel to get there and get back. And I couldn't take at the time I only had one dog, now I've got two. I couldn't take the dogs with me because when I did take my dog, he got attacked. And so I had a kennel that I put up there, and it flew down the mountain supposedly from the wind. Um, and it tore the tarp that was on the top. So I've got to mitigate that before I can reuse it for anything. And there were other issues about some things. I don't have a problem with any of the people up there in Ed's group. It just, for me, it was mostly a camping spot. And to not be able to go on a hike and enjoy the time off, it just became, I work hard as it is. I drive a truck anywhere from 45 to 60 hours a week. And so when I get off, I want to relax, right? And instead, I go up there and I'm having to work more. And it just became untenable, okay? This did not come out of the blue. I just want everybody to realize this decision was a very hard decision for me. It came down to several factors. Number one was the distance. Number two was looking at, because of the distance, what was the likelihood of me actually getting there, which would have been 0. And number three was the fact that it was just no longer fun. If you can't have fun in life, as short as life is, what it's just ridiculous, right? And then there was the money situation, right? And bleeding money for something that I don't get to really enjoy, just, it makes no sense. Okay, because if you can't enjoy what you're doing, why do it? I enjoy driving a truck. That's why I drive a truck. I enjoy the people I work around. That's why I'm working where I'm working. Uh, I enjoy gardening. That's why I have gardens. I enjoy my chickens. That's why I have chickens, right? Uh, so if it gets to the point where you're not enjoying it anymore, and it just becomes another chore, uh, no, it's time to let it go, right? So that's what I did. Um, Now, I thought about this since October of last year. Uh, and it was a hard decision for me because, I've put in a lot of money and time to get my little cabin set up. And in order to move it, I had to dismantle everything that I had in there. And I've posted a couple pictures so you get an idea of how much stuff we're talking about, right? I had the decking, right? That I had all the wood for the decking, generator, food, right? Solar panels, bookshelves, right? Had to take apart the shelving, had the bed, right? Um, so I got to Ed's Friday. I had to dismantle the kennel. And I noticed that when I dismantled the kennel, that the top of the kennel was torn. So we're going to have to mitigate that, right? Because somehow it went down the mountain. Mm-hmm. Somehow it went down the mountain. Supposedly from the wind. Even though I had it staked down. You infer what you want to infer from that. Another thing I noticed was somehow or another the lock on my cabin was broke. This is an ongoing issue with several cabins there. Mine's not the only one. I noticed somebody had been through my stuff in my cabin. See, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on, okay? And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just saying that this is what happened. I don't know who did it. I don't care at this point. Another thing that I noticed was in February, I wasn't warned that the driveway was covered in 6 inches of ice and snow. And I almost slid off the driveway 3 times. To not call me and tell me, hey, don't come because the driveway's bad, was totally not looking out for my safety and well-being. That's incomprehensible to me. That's not the first incident where I felt like my safety and well-being was not being looked at. That right there, I drove a truck for this December, it'll be 24 years. I've driven in ice and snow. I know how to drive in ice and snow. But when you're driving up an ATV trail, which is basically what his driveway is an ATV trail, and it's covered in 6 inches of ice and snow, and you got switchbacks, it'd be very easy for someone to slide right off that driveway down the 30-foot embankment. And I almost did that 3 times. because I wasn't warned. And once you start up that driveway, you can't stop. You've got to go for it. And this was also after they knew that I had just spent $1,500 on transmission work, and I didn't know if my 4-wheel drive would work because it literally just came out of the shop. Okay. Third issue. Nothing I said was listened to. Nothing. Now, I don't have an issue with the people there, but to have in your brain that you're going to do something a certain way and someone tells you that you should do it a different way, because that makes more sense, and be totally blown off, so then you have to do it twice. All of you who have watched the channel know that Barb and Paul told Ed about the culvert, told Ed how to do the culvert, and Ed decided to do it his way, and so what happened? The culvert washed away, and they had to redo it because they didn't listen. Issue. Issue after issue after issue. And combined with the distance and I'm just going to be honest, one of the ladies there who is also going to be leaving, someone stayed in her shed without her permission. She was never called. She was never asked. She wasn't given a phone call to say, hey, do you mind? Because her being the way she is, I'm pretty sure she would have said yes. But the fact that you didn't even bother to call, that's an issue. The fact that in February when I went into my cabin, I drink, and I know some of you are going to say that's shit coffee, that's fine. I've drank Maxwell House 100% Colombian coffee since I was 16. That's the coffee I drink. I do not drink Clover Valley coffee. I always keep 2 cans of coffee ready to go. In case I run out of the one can, I've got another one as a backup. I always keep at least 2. Normally I keep 6. But considering the space, I only had 2 up at my cabin. And the very first thing I noticed when I walked in my cabin is there was a can of Clover Valley coffee, mild Clover Valley coffee, and I don't drink that coffee. Now I don't know who did it. It could have been a neighbor down the road that went in there and said, oh, look here, they got coffee. I'm going to take this coffee and I'll replace it later. Right? It could have been anybody. Right? Could have been anybody. But the fact that my lock on my shed was broke, the fact that the stuff on my shelves was jumbled around, where someone had gone through and looked through everything I had, literally looked through everything I had. That's a violation of my personal space. The other thing that happened was I had a Seaflow cassette toilet that I take with me when I go camping. And I bring it home and dump it down into my sewage system. When I left in November and December, I left that cassette toilet up there. When I got there in February, my cassette toilet was broke. It had obviously been used by somebody. Again, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Not pointing fingers at anybody. But at that point, combined with everything else, that was the last straw. That was the last straw. So, stuff vanishing. Like, I'm so stupid I don't know what I have up there. Now, anyone who's watched my channel for any amount of time know that I'm slightly autistic. And one of the things with my autism is I have a complete list of everything that I have. Down to the nail. It's just part of my detail-oriented side of autism. I know what I have. I know that I bought 5 sheets of T111. And when I went up there Friday and started loading up, hello, I only had 4. I know I bought 10 4x8s. Hello, loading it up. I've got 8 4x8s and 1 4x8 cut in half. And 1 completely missing. Now let's take back into consideration the distance. Let's take back into the consideration that if someone had called me and said, hey, we need this for this, I probably would have said, okay. But just to take things, that's a slap in my face. I work hard for every penny that I spend. I work very hard for it. And again, I'm not pointing fingers. I don't know who did it. I don't care. The fact that it happened says a lot. It says that my safety, my welfare, and my stuff mean nothing. And that they'll just take whatever they want. So, I'm not trying to put this a blast. I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to blast anyone, because I don't know who did it. It could have been one of Ed's neighbors. It could have been anybody. Because if Ed is not there, there are people all around there that could ride ATVs up his driveway. And they could be watching to see when he leaves, and they could come up in there and take whatever they want. Go into whatever they want. And he would never know. So, I'm not pointing fingers. I want to be very clear about that. But it just became an issue where I no longer felt safe. And I no longer felt like, just to give you an example, my solar panel that I paid $450 for was safe sitting there. My food, my 4Patriots food buckets have been opened and gone through. I don't know if any of it's missing. But the fact I paid $697 for it, and then somebody put their grimy paws on my stuff. Another issue. Somebody went and jumbled up my blankets. Now, did somebody sleep on my bed? I don't know. I have no idea. But the fact that when I left in February, and I didn't go up there in March, and I come back Friday, and the very first thing I notice on my bed is the sleeping bag's on the top of the bed. I didn't have the sleeping bag on the top of the bed. I had a big dragon fleece blanket on top of the bed. The sleeping bag was on the bottom, on top of the sheets, upside down, so that when I laid down, I had like soft on top of the sheets instead of sliding all over the place. Again, violation of my space. And amazingly, when I got there, my shed was locked. And I had a hell of a time unlocking it because the lock is broke. So when you combine all these issues, it became untenable. And again, like I said, I'm not pointing the finger. I'm not pointing the finger. But this is the issues that I ran into, which made my decision. And I'm not the only one who's having issues. I'm not the only one. And I purposely waited to put out this video until I was completely clear of the group, because I'm sure this is going to piss off certain people. But the reality is, this is what happened to me. Whether or not it happens to somebody else, I have no idea. I know that there's other people that are also having issues. So, it's untenable. Another big issue there is the water. Several of us tried to bring up the issue that you needed water besides rain catchment, and the way that you have the rain catchment set up is incorrect. And you're going to get sick. And basically we were told, well, I've been using rain catchment for so many years and it's never bothered me, blah, 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 blah. The fact that it's never bothered you is because that's by the grace of God. The reality is, there's no clean water there. And without clean water, it's not sustainable. Point blank. Point blank, it's not sustainable. Issue of trying to mitigate the soil, because up there it's a lot of clay and sand, and it needs to be mitigated so you can grow in it. And those suggestions were blown off. Not sustainable. So, like I said, several issues going on. But the biggest one for me was the distance. And that's what it came down to. It came down to the distance. And it came down to not feeling like my safety and well-being was taken into account. Like I said, not pointing the finger, just telling you what happened to me. So, it's been a very long weekend for me. I still got stuff to put away. Got all this stuff to put away. And I still got to get out there and do my normal homesteading stuff today. With cutting the grass and getting the chickens taken care of and taking care of the animals and giving the animals clean water. So, I posted a couple pictures on my community page. You can go and look at them. I am out of Ed's group. I wish them well. I will never return to Ed's group. And this is why. Bicycle.